Hey there, friends, it's Nick. This is episode 434 of the StoryHacker podcast. Quick one today, because I want to let you in on a little secret that novelists know. And that is, well, the funny thing about writing a novel is you end up with all kinds of ideas, all kinds of plot twists and directions and, things to kind of weigh up. And you end up choosing, hopefully you end up choosing the best plot, the best sort of structure for the novel from all of these different examples. And the funny thing is, when you do that, when you finally finish, it feels as though when you read the book, when you read the story, it feels as though that's the only way it could be. Whereas, and that's certainly the impression that, of course, the readers get. Whereas for me, one of the strangest things about writing novels is that I've got so many different sort of scenarios. I've got like multiple universes in my head where in this one the character did this, in that one the character did that, and sometimes it is genuinely hard for me to remember which exact route I chose on a particular scene or a particular beat or whatever. And this is one of the really interesting and powerful things about storytelling, which is that because of the way that good stories work, the kind of because of this, then that structure, the cause and effect structure, they feel like truth. Even though, they're obviously, as we've said before, stories are summaries of the important parts of a narrative in some sense. And I was listening to a podcast recently, The Knowledge Project, which had this as a special guest, BJ Fogg, who I've talked about before on this podcast. He wrote the Tiny Habits book, which is well worth reading if you're interested in psychology and humanity and changing your life for the better. But on that podcast, he said something really interesting, which kind of backs up my experience as a novelist. I'm going to quote him now. He said, "Our brains, when we hear a narrative or story that encapsulate a cause and effect relationship, we have a really hard time pushing back and saying, no, that's not true. A well-told story in some ways is the only persuasion tactic for which we don't have a good defence for." And I think that's really interesting, and it's partly because when there is strong cause and effect in your story, your audience get carried along by the tide. And now, we know when that doesn't exist, because occasionally when we're watching, a movie or reading a novel or watching a TV show or something, we'll stop and say, that makes no sense. And it takes away our suspension of disbelief. And it's jarring, right? But when a story is well told, when the cause and effect runs smoothly and powerfully, we get carried along by it like it's a river. And it's interesting, what BJ Fogg says about the fact that it's a persuasion tactic which we as humans don't have a good defence for. And of course, we can see that working for good and for ill, around about us every day. But it's one of those things that if you can create a well-crafted story with a good cause and effect, a good causal relationship all the way through, it's likely to be believed, it's likely to be credible, it's likely to carry people with it. And that's how we tell a story that means business. Okay, that's it for today. Tomorrow, in the next episode, I'm going to talk about Jeff Bezos' amazing memo from, I think it's 2014, where he essentially stopped his executives delivering PowerPoint slides and started making them tell stories. And I'll talk tomorrow about why that's so important and why it's one of the reasons that Amazon is where it is today. Thanks for listening.